Welcome to the Town of Derry Planning Board meeting for December 4th, 2024. We routinely start our meeting with a pledge of allegiance, so if you would rise and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll first go through some technical and housekeeping issues. For members of the audience, if there's an alarm activation in some sort of emergency, there's an exit to the rear where you came in. There's an emergency exit to my right, to your left. During alarm activations, the elevator is inoperable, so if you need assistance, wait for first responders to come. Please mute your phones and smart devices at this point. The Planning Board voluntarily permits remote participation. We have member Mr. Feinauer who is participating remotely, and so therefore we will conduct everything, even procedural votes, by roll call. If I forget, someone please remind me. To attend the meeting, if you're remote, you can use your computer or smart device in a browser to go to www.zoom.us. There's a meeting ID, 754-663-912, or you may dial in by phone for audio only. The number is 646-558-8656. Same meeting ID, 754-663-912. If you have any problems getting in online, please call 603-845-5585. If you're on the phone and you are recognized to speak, you may hit *6 to unmute yourself. And if you wish to raise your hand to be recognized, hit *9 to raise your hand. At this point, I will introduce the staff and members who are present tonight. My far right, Planning Director, Ms. Robidoux, Planning Clerk, Ms. Cavello, Town Administrative Representative, Mr. Chase.
Good evening.
Member, Mr. Healy.
Good evening.
Town Council Liaison, Mr. Grenice.
Good evening.
Vice Chair, Mr. O'Connor.
Good evening.
To my far left is our Cable Media Coordinator, Mr. Preventure. Town Engineer, Mr. LaRue.
Good evening.
Member, Mr. Fishman. Good evening. Alternate, Ms. Lavoy. Good evening. Alternate, Ms. Mousy. Good evening. Member, Mr. Myers. Hello. Secretary, Mr. Malaby.
Good evening.
And I'm Dave Nelson. I'm the chair. First item on the business tonight is administrative business, escrow for packet ID number 24-37 for Paul Doolittle. We have that in our packet, and I will ask Ms. Rodu to review it for us.
There we go. This is for the subdivision of 33 Old Chester Road. The request is to establish cash escrow in the amount of $14,605, and it would be a non-interest bearing account.
Okay, what is the board's pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Greeny, seconded by Mr. O'Connor to approve as presented. I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Greenies?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fishman?
Yes.
Mr. Feinauer? That looked like a yes. Okay. Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Malloy?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. It's approved. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of November 20th, 2024. Has everyone had a chance to review them? And are there any errors or omissions?
I would
Chair, not seen.
point out that there were a couple of changes made that are reflected in this document.
Okay.
Okay.
I so move it.
Moved by O'Connor to approve as presented the site.
Second.
And seconded by Malaby. Again, I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
I will abstain, Mr. Chair. I was not here.
Mr. Healy?
I will abstain as well. I was not present.
Mr. Grenice?
I was not present, but I did watch the meeting on the video, and I did read these, so I'll vote yes.
Okay, Mr. O'Connor?
Yes, approved.
Mr. Myers? Oh, Mr. Feinauer? I keep skipping you because you're remote. Yes? Yes. Mr. Myers?
I also was not here, and unlike Mr. Gradici, I did not watch it on TV, so I have to abstain.
Okay. Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So all of those voting are in favor, and we have several abstentions. The next item of business is correspondence, and I'm sorry, Mr. Malaby, the correspondence file is empty this week.
Oh, that's a shame.
Next item is other business. We have a conceptual review discussion pursuant to the zoning ordinance section 165.32.4.20 permitted uses for parcel ID 05053-001 2 Island Pond Road, Rockingham Cycle. Would you introduce this for us?
Okay, thank you. As the board is familiar, for any use going into the West Running Brook District, if the use is not permitted by right in the zone, it needs a variance, which goes before the zoning board. And it's the only thing in the West Running Brook District that goes before the ZBA. So Rockingham Cycle is located in the district. The use is not a permitted one in the zone and will require a variance. There is a variance application pending before the ZBA tomorrow evening. As part of that application, they need to be before the planning board for a concept discussion so that the board can review the use and discuss its suitability for the district. You have a letter of explanation prepared on behalf of Mr. LaRosa, who owns Rockingham Cycle. With him tonight is Edward Umanick, and I would ask if you guys would like to present information to the board about about the business and its suitability for the district.
All right. So before we begin, let me just make sure I understand. They are currently moved into a space that is in the WRB district?
It is at 2 Island Pond Road. So it's the same building that houses, it's the old Grandview Flea Market site. You recently saw an application or a discussion from Stiletto Construction and Builders Reserve. The Construction and Builders Reserve is located on the left-hand side as you look at the building, and Rockingham Cycle is on the right.
And so there is a pending ZBA variance
Yes.
application?
Yes, there is.
If that is successful, will there also be a site plan review?
That if the ZBA so conditions the application, yes.
But otherwise, our regulations consider this a change of use, or?
It would be a change of use, yes. So they still would need to file a change of use if they don't file a site plan. So
Okay.
we'll get some internal review by the departments.
All right, is there any questions from anyone on the board about the status of what we're talking about tonight? Mr. Myers?
I don't understand. And I'm sorry, my hearing is down tonight. I don't know why. I didn't hear everything that you said, Elizabeth. I
Okay.
apologize. They've already moved in, but they don't have the permission for the use, is that right? Did I get that right?
Correct. They moved to the building when we noticed that the business had moved in. We did reach out and say, oh, by the way, you kind of need to talk to us. So it's not an uncommon occurrence with some property owners. There's nothing against Mr. LaRosa.
Right.
He wasn't informed that he needed to do that. So, yeah. Yeah.
I apologize if it came off that way. I just don't understand that they.
Andy, is your mic on?
Yeah.
Double check.
I just didn't understand, and I didn't mean anything against anyone.
Oh,
I
of
just
course,
didn't
yeah.
understand because I didn't hear everything you said.
Yeah.
But they moved in and they did not have approval for the use, but it wasn't their fault because.
No, they weren't aware that they needed a variance to operate from that location. So they're following all the right steps.
Did they file a change of use prior to that?
When they were notified by the town that they needed to file the change of use, they brought in the ZBA application and the change of use application at the same time. And I instructed Mr. LaRosa he should hold off on the change of use process until we knew for sure if the ZBA was going to allow the use or not.
Okay, so both the variance application and the change of use filing were after the fact? after the
Yes.
move.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? No? Then would you like to present your conceptual discussion? I don't think that's on.
Okay. All set? Good
No,
evening,
good-
Mr. Chairman. My name is Ed Humanick, Huminick. I'm a friend of Joe LaRosa, Brother Elk. I'm also chairman of the Salem, New Hampshire Zoning Board of Adjustment, so don't hold that against me. Joe came to me one afternoon and said, I have an issue. I need some help with planning and zoning. So first thing I did is I met with Liz, who's been great. Your staff here has been great. I then went through this board's meeting minutes for Stiletto Construction. And the document you have in front of you not only addresses the question you asked them, but also information about Rockingham Cycle. So hopefully you'll find it pretty comprehensive. I don't know if you want me to go read the letter, or do you have questions, or?
Maybe you could give us the executive summary of the business as it intends to operate?
Okay. The business, Rockingham Cycle has been in business since 1994. And previously, before moving to Wyndham, he was located on Route 28 to Derry. He was located in a building on Route 28 in Wyndham. That building was sold, and the owner wanted to put his own business in there, so it forced Mr. LaRosa to relocate. We understand that we're going to need a variance. I've gone through the variance ordinances, and we filed a variance, what I think is a complete variance application. Rockingham Cycle specializes in motorcycle repairs and stocks parts for Harley-Davidson and other makes. They're certified at the previous location. They were certified to do state of New Hampshire inspections, and assuming we get approval from the ZBA and this, and a good result from this board, Mr. LaRosa intends to become certified for inspections in the new location. The hours of operation, Monday through Friday, 10 to 6, Saturday, 10 to 2, Sundays closed. Generally, he requires appointments but he will do walkthroughs. Scope of services, in his 30 years in business, he's committed to assisting customers to get back on the road safely. So they do routine maintenance, tune-ups, tires, safety inspections, batteries, electrical problems, and adding accessories. So if you buy an accessory, you bring it to Joe, he puts it on the bike for you. It's important to note, they do not build custom motorcycles. They don't perform any welding, fabrication, painting, or machine shop work. All of that is done off-site with other vendors. So it's strictly repairs and maintenance. The business is seasonal, obviously, because you're in New England. The prime season is March through November. Traffic generation, as I stated in the write-up, they average 3 to 4 customers a day and probably 2 deliveries a day and 2 pickups. Those deliveries are predominantly FedEx and UPS, parts, accessories. Given the services on the location and the setback from the road, we don't anticipate there's going to be any drive-by traffic to say, oh, let's go to Rockingham Cycle. It's basically a custom business. You know, longtime customers, I want to say older gentlemen and ladies, but you know, they take care of their bikes and want them serviced correctly today. Signage, we understand that we're going to probably need a sign variance. You see in the photograph included in your packet, there is the only sign on the property is a 4x4 wooden sign that's leaning up against the building. I'm talking with Liz. We're probably going to need some kind of sign relief. We also have a 4x8 banner that we would prefer to use, and possibly a 2x4 sign on the mailbox. But again, those are issues that we can address if we are successful for the ZBA. And if you look at we understand that the West Running Brook Road District, any sign proposal needs to be reviewed by this board. Outside storage, Mr. LaRosa anticipates he'll have a 40-foot container only for used parts. These parts would not contain any hazardous materials. He also anticipates during the prime season having a 10-yard dumpster. Building modifications. As a tenant, we haven't done, the only alterations that have been done is there is a demising wall that's being installed between Rockingham Cycle and Stiletto Construction. That's been up and it's there. The building already has an overhead door and will accommodate customers and their motorcycles to enter the building. The only change that has been made is that interior wall. I can get into the discussion of the West Running Brook zoning district if you'd like. The appearance tonight, we will need a relief from section 165.32.4 with regard to proposed uses. At the October 2nd Planning Board, one of our fellow tenants in the building, Stiletto Construction, in the October 2nd meeting, Planning Director Roberto stated the integration of the town master plan is to encourage small business growth, economic development, and building retention. Board Chairman David Nelson said the board is looking for a village feel and a walkable mixed-use environment. And we can understand that. I'm the zoning board in my town. Unfortunately, we have a long-time vacant building that doesn't lend itself to walking in a village feel. So it's a renovation of an existing use. This is not a ground-up development. That building, according to town records, was built in 1949. And the ordinance, that ordinance passed in 2019 and again was revised in 2022. Our use is a small-scale retail commercial use, which will revitalize the existing building and, as outlined above, will not create traffic noise or environmental concerns. And I trust that you'll provide our use an acceptable one. The packet includes a floor plan of the existing space. You see that we're on the right-hand side of the building, and directly to the left is the space that Stiletto Construction is currently occupying. And then the last page of the packet has a photograph of the building. You can see the 4x4 sign that I mentioned and a couple of motorcycles parked out front. Have any questions? Yes.
So, yeah, you don't mention that you're doing oil changes and whatnot, but I imagine that that would be part of the
Wanna talk to
routine
that?
maintenance?
Yeah, this is Joe LaRosa.
Come on down and take a seat at the presenter's dais there. There's a couple of microphones you can use. Just make sure the little green light is turned on and we can hear you. So would you give your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Joseph LaRosa. I reside at 25 Town Farm Road, Salem, New Hampshire.
Okay, thank you. So I guess where I'm going is, do you store either for future use or prior to safe disposal any hazardous or flammable products in the business?
I have oil, there's 3 different types of oil that go into the motorcycle. I don't store any gasoline or anything like that. I have spray cans of penetrating oil, carburetor cleaner, but I do have the approved containers that they go, cabinets that they go in at nighttime when I'm not there.
Will there be a dumpster servicing this property?
Yes.
Okay, and where is that going to be located?
In the parking lot along the edge of it. It's a rather large parking lot.
Okay, so it's in the front parking lot rather than behind the building?
In front of the building.
Do you know, does the other tenant have similar situation with their dumpster?
Yes, they have a dumpster there right now.
Okay. All right, that's all I have for now. Anyone else? Mr. O'Connor?
Yes, in the building, are there any drains,
Drains, floor
Right.
drains?
floor drains?
No, sir.
Okay, that's very good.
Mr. Greenies?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So I understand that, you had to move your location from Wyndham. You looked for a place, you found a place in Derry. You weren't notified that you had to come to the town, to the zone and the planning board, correct?
Correct, yes.
So I know I said it, I believe I said it when your neighbor came in. You know, we want small business in Derry. I'm glad you picked Derry to come in. It's not your fault that you weren't told the proper procedure. I know it doesn't fit in the district, but looking at that property, that property's been vacant for a long time. It was an old flea market. They got raided, shut down, and then Revived Furniture was in there for a long time. And they ended up moving because they couldn't, they wanted to buy the building and they couldn't. And then it's been vacant. I know, I think there's a roofing company that's also in that area. I personally have no problem with your business going in there. I drive 28 a lot, and I've actually, I've never seen burnouts or anything, so I don't know if anybody has concerns about that, like some other motorcycle places that I won't mention in neighboring towns. So I know, I have a Harley, I've never had it serviced there, but I know people that have, and in the past, they said, you know, that you run a very respectful and professional business. So this is, in the past, people have told me that. So that was good to hear that you were coming to Derry. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I have no problem with
Thank you.
you going in there.
Anyone else have questions or comments? I had a question, but I answered it by reading the zoning ordinance. I was curious why, in these situations, we were asked for a recommendation, and apparently, in 165-32-4, B20, it specifically says that the zoning board requests the board's advice and comment as to the suitability of the use before they have their hearing. So that's why we're doing that, in case anyone was also curious. Other questions?
I have one. So I'm just looking at the email from board member Feinhauer, and on one of the pictures, it looks like there is a burnout. Is this the current location, or is this the old location?
He doesn't have that packet, so,
He's on Zoom, so he can probably answer the question.
yeah.
Yeah, can we unmute
Those are
Mr.
shadows.
Feinauer?
I don't know.
Is this the picture that you're?
No.
This is, did they get sent this, or?
I don't know. I'm going to invite Mr. Feinauer to speak to his comments when he gets a moment to do that, assuming his audio is working.
Yeah, because I just want to point out that I read through his email, and I think some of the points in here are valid for that district. And while he says in here, I sympathize with the applicant, I do think that they should be researching some of this stuff and seeing what can actually go in there before they move into a location. It should be on both the person renting it out and the applicant going in to see if that use that they're going in for is actually valid in the district before they move in. So I don't know if Mr. Feinhauer wants to speak to any of this, if his microphone's working, but I mean, I'm a little concerned with the same things that he points out in here, that, we're trying to make this district, and this doesn't seem like it really is something that fits in that district.
Okay, Mr. Feinauer, do you have audio? Apparently not.
I guess I would just ask if the applicant got a copy of this, and.
I just provided it to
Okay,
him.
and maybe, I don't know if maybe they can address some of his concerns that he has.
Well, since Mr. Feinauer's without audio, would you be so kind as to read the memo for the record?
Maybe we can get him to call in.
I don't know.
His audio is working on his end. It's our end.
Yeah,
It's just.
it's probably his mic that's not working.
Because, I mean, I kind of agree that someone shouldn't move into a place and then ask for the variance. They should be asking for the variance and then moving in. And while they're waiting for the variance, are they able to operate currently?
They do not have a certificate of occupancy.
Okay. I mean, that answers my questions, but I share a lot of his concerns in this email.
While we're waiting to see if we can connect Mr. Feinheimer's audio, this is a more general question and would have covered the previous situation as well. We say it's not the tenant's fault that they didn't know, but there is the general principle that ignorance of the law is no excuse. Are they typically advised of these issues by a realtor, if a realtor is involved?
It depends on the realtor.
Did you have a realtor assist you in finding this location?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Meyer?
I agree with everything that Mr. Granisi said. I agree with everything he said, 99.99999%. But it is true legally that when one takes property, one is deemed to know. Whether they do or not is a different subject, but when one buys property, they're deemed to know what goes with that property and what runs with the land. And I see it most commonly in a condo type of a situation by analogy. It's not the same thing, but by analogy, people will buy into a condo, then they'll put a boat in the backyard and they'll be told, you can't have a boat in your backyard, or a flag, or whatever it may be. And they say they didn't know. That's not a defense. When one buys real estate, one is deemed to know what runs with the land. So my question, and I don't know, and maybe it was covered before, I don't know why I'm having a hearing problem, but usually my hearing is really clear. But did someone in this town give the purchaser the idea that this use was okay? Was there some affirmative statement that was made by someone in the town that this would be okay before you bought?
No, sir. First of all, I did not buy the property. I'm renting
Right, you're
a
renting it,
spot.
okay.
And I approached the owner of the building.
Right.
And I told him what I wanted to do. And he said, yes, fine, you're all set to do that. I had no idea that, I needed to go for a change of use. I thought that would be handled by Mr. Taylor, and evidently not.
Okay, so it was the owner of the property that told you it would be okay. There was nobody in the town that led you to believe
No,
that?
no,
Okay.
there's nobody on the town or the board or anything like, no, not at all.
That answers my question.
Well, I guess that, regardless of the timing, they are currently seeking relief from the restriction, and they don't have a CO, so they're not operating at this moment.
Shouldn't be, no.
And so I guess we are in the position of giving the zoning board advice as to whether we think the use variance is reasonable for the district, which I guess goes to some of the comments that Mr. Grenice and others have made with respect to, yeah, this is a large, older building, kind of off the street, maybe doesn't fit the vision of walkable. So I guess the question is, we're not going to make a decision on the variance. That's not our job. But we're going to give the zoning board some advice as to whether we think this use for that particular parcel, because it does say in the purpose that all of the parcels have unique properties that we're trying to honor and uphold. So I guess the question is, do we think it's a reasonable use, and would we advise the zoning board it's a good thing or a bad thing?
When I was on the zoning board, no offense to anybody, I don't remember ever asking the planning board for its advice. There's a 5-step analysis that's set forth in the state statute, and it's been interpreted by the Supreme Court a number of different times, going back and forth. But not that we shouldn't give them advice if they ask us, but I don't recall when I was on the zoning board ever asking the planning.
Well, I had that same question, and I answered it for myself, because in the zoning ordinance, it says in item 20, any use not listed in this section is deemed prohibited and cannot be permitted without a variance from the zoning board of adjustment. The zoning board of adjustment, before considering any application for a variance under this section, meaning in this district, shall refer such application to the planning board to seek the board's advice and comment as to the suitability of use for the lot in question, taking into consideration the effect of the variance upon the character of the zoning district and any other pertinent data in respect to the master plan. So I assume they're asking because the zoning ordinance says they have to.
I get it, but is that a relatively new section? What you just read, is that a relatively new?
Well, it's as new as the WRB.
2019.
Okay, so yes, all right. 'Cause my years on the
I
zoning board go
think
back.
this provision only exists for this district.
Right, I understood that as you read that, so, okay.
So
So
It is
that's
a
why,
little
that's
unusual.
why they're asking for our permission, or not our permission,
Our
our advice.
recommendation.
Our recommendation. Okay.
So, other comments? Anyone, I would like to ask everyone to kind of like chime in something. Do you think it's a good idea or bad idea to ask questions? Ms. Robideau?
I just, as the board is considering the suitability of the district, I would, just invite the board to consider, as the district was being created, we were looking basically at uses that were helpful to the residents who lived in the district that they could get to in a relatively short span of time. And I know this is not a traditional, it may not be what everyone may have expected, like a dry cleaner or dentist or, something to that effect. But, as you're looking at requests like this, I just ask the board to consider the specific type of use and how it might relate to these very few lots in this district.
So I guess I'm going to go down and pick on people. Mr. Fishman, do you have any thoughts?
The district's use and the intent seems to preserve, the intent is to preserve a neighborhood and walkable feel, and particularly cites the proximity of the lots next to each other. I somewhat agree that it doesn't necessarily seem like it's serving the local neighborhood area as a service or as a retail establishment in that regard. So I don't believe that necessarily conforms with the intention of the space. There's also reference to the environmental resources. Maybe there's I'm not sure if the concern about noise is warranted or not, but that would, in my mind, count under the environmental aspect of that area. That having been said, so I don't really feel that there are so few areas that have a specific. This is actually the only area that has. That specifically seeks out the planning board's comment for this area. There's a very intentional reason to preserve the character of this district that's not in any other of these other districts. So I think there's a reason for that, and we've had an ongoing discussion about the appropriateness of variances. This feels like yet another situation where if we have specific intention for an area, then why do we consistently change it? I absolutely think I feel for the applicant. That's a very difficult situation. There's obviously a cost involved here, but I'm not sure if that would be considered a hardship. The investment that's gone into place already. Those are my comments.
Right. I don't know that we actually have to make that finding, but that's a good point. I'm going to ask Ms. Lavoy to give us her thoughts. You're not seated for voting, but you're welcome to participate in discussion.
I agree that in terms of the zoning, that it doesn't fit it doesn't fit the requirements to be in that area. However, I agree with Mr. Granisi that, the building's been vacant for a long time. This is a seasonal business, and I think that it could be a good use of an underutilized property.
Mr. Muzzy, do you have thoughts to share?
I do. I remember the Grandview Flea Market as a kid growing up. It's a really big space. I just worry about, I worry about the noise. I do. My concern is the noise that's going to come from that area. And I'm not saying that you're gonna be promoting it, but it would be a place that you could congregate and start off from there to go on a ride, I guess. So that's my concern, is the noise.
Mr. Myers, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I kind of expressed them before, but I mean, that's a very busy intersection. I know all about the West Running Brook District. We've discussed it before. We've kind of, in some of the site reviews and some of the votes, we've discussed, waiving the technical requirements with respect to the proportion of residential units and commercial units. And people on the board know that I've been critical of the fact that the board tends to give out, by analogy, it's not the same thing, but we give out waivers like the candy at a parade. So, I mean, yeah, I remember Grandview too, and it was somewhat noisy in the summertime. So, I mean, it's a big lot. I agree with Mr. Granisi that, it's nice to have somebody that wants to have a business there instead of like sitting here saying, oh, why can't we get a business? So I tend to think, I don't think there's any harm in it. I really don't.
Mr. Malamy?
If I may, I'd have one quick question. I think I know the answer to it, but you said that you get a couple deliveries a day. What time do you receive those deliveries?
About 1 in the afternoon. It's hard to nail down UPS or FedEx.
Because it's UPS and FedEx. I figured
yeah.
you weren't getting. Yeah, we talk about the business and wanting it to comport with the West Running Brook District, but the lot itself really doesn't grant itself to walkability, and that sort of thing. I think just due to the nature of the business, it's not sales, it's service. It's by appointment only. I'm pretty much in line with everything Mr. Granese said earlier. I don't see any problem with it.
Mr. Chase?
So as far as it being listed as a permitted use, no, it is not. But if you look at the overall picture of what we want for that district, say that lot was being redeveloped as a village feel and walkable, and what we want is businesses in there that could service the people locally. This is a small, well-run business, and say there was a coffee shop, a restaurant, or some other retail uses there. Somebody has an appointment to come in and have their motorcycle serviced. They bring it in, they drop it off. They don't want to leave it, so they would walk around and frequent some of the other retail businesses in there. If it had been a larger dealership-type place, like some of the larger ones, Nalt's or something like that, I hate to use names, but I might be a little more hesitant to recommend it. But on a small one like this, I think it actually would fit into our vision for the West Running Brook District. It's one small retail business that could potentially support other small retail businesses if that lot ever came fruition to our vision. So, does it fit per the ordinance? No, I do not. But does it fit per the vision of what we're looking for in that district? I do believe that it would. So, I would have to say that I would look into it favorably. Not, not, how do I put it? Giving Mr. Feinau's concerns due thought. That's possible anywhere with anything. The gas station on the corner could have the same issues. The little drive-in restaurant on the opposite corner could have the same issues as far as people gathering and making noise and such like that. As far as the noise, I mean, what else is there around it? Nothing. There's 20 acres with a gas station in the front corner. So who is it really going to bother? If it did, I don't believe it would happen, but even if it did, who's there to be bothered?
So my hope would be that if it was in there and that lot did get redeveloped, it would stay, as I had said previously, one small business that can potentially support others in the area. That's my thought on it.
Thank you. Mr. Healy?
I pretty much said everything on my comments earlier. I tend to agree more with this email from Mr. Feinhauer.
Okay. Mr. Grenice, do you have any further thoughts?
So, yeah, I have a question. So I know Ms. Roberto showed you that picture. Can you tell me where that was taken? So one, this looks like,
That looks like the parking lot of my 2 Island Pond Road.
that was in your parking lot?
Yes.
Was that there before you moved in?
No, it wasn't, sir. And I can tell you right now, that is not made by a motorcycle, that is made by a car. I came in one morning, and my friend says, "What's going on over here?" I says, "I have no idea. There's no cameras out there. I have no idea where that came from." I would like to say at this time, the previous spot that I was at in Wyndham, I was there for 30 years plus. I never had any issues. I never had any run-ins with the police department, any complaints. There is a house out front with 3 tenants in it, tenants across the street, and actually a house right aside of me also. I have never had a complaint of noise or people gathering in 30-plus years.
And I'm just gonna, I wanted to ask that question to find out about that, and I'm just gonna reiterate again, and I just think that if someone was gonna buy that development, and I know going back when, years ago, you know, I mentioned when I was chairman, I wish someone would buy that and put like a supermarket there or something. I remember, sure, like you guys and Liz remember talking about that, but no one wants to buy that property, so if we can get businesses in there, at least maybe fix the building up, bring more people in town. People come in town, they're gonna come in and go to the bike shop, like when Revive was open. They'd go there, they'd go to other businesses in town, so you're bringing people in town. And again, I have no problem with this use going in that building. And I know that at some point, to Mr. Chase's perspective of coffee shop or something, but I think if someone did buy that property, they'd probably demo that whole building and put a whole new building up. And if they do, hopefully, you know, if Rockingham's approved, they'd stay there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Connor, do you have any more thoughts?
A couple of comments I would like to make, and I don't know if Mr. Feinhauer is still on. Obviously, we couldn't get him to speak because his mic's not working. But a question I have first for Liz, the document that he wrote on December 1st and sent it to the planning board, is this going to be going over to the zoning board too? His letter? His memo?
I guess that would be at the board's pleasure, depending on the outcome of the board's recommendation. Because I know the zoning board has their packets already, you know, it's similar to the planning board. They, you know, their files kind of close after a certain date, but they understood they needed to get input from the planning board, so that memo's coming to them tomorrow, kind of outlining the, you know, how this discussion went this evening. So it would be at the board's pleasure. If you want that included, absolutely. It's public, yeah, absolutely. We can include it.
Okay, well, Mr. Chair, since we can't get Mr. Feinhauer, I would like to at least list, because it's a well-thought-out document, and I'd like to list some of his concerns for him. One is incompatibility with the West Running Brook District and the intent. Number 2, noise and environmental impact. And these are all roughly paragraphs that he had put together. 3 was site-specific concerns. Number 4, the precedent for variances. The next one is recommendations that he puts together there. And then he has a conclusion, which is 2 or 3, 2 paragraphs. So I would advise the zoning board to actually review this document. The one thing I would add, I did drive down there yesterday, And my first thought coming down there, and it's no fault of yours, but the place is dilapidated. It's got canisters over there. I mean, we need to turn this over to the building committee, because they go around looking up for areas that don't look so good. And these giant rectangular metal boxes for storage, they're all over the place. And so, like, again, it's not on you, but that property obviously has been neglected for a long, long time. And I don't know whether it's burdening you in your agreement or whatever, if you have a contract with the owners, whether or not you'll be responsible or they're gonna be responsible for cleaning up that whole area. Just a question.
I'm in charge of whatever I bring in there, I take out. That's the way it was at the previous place, and that's the way it is at this place also. That's my understanding. Yes, Mr. Taylor does have other containers out there, but they're rented out to somebody. They're neat and orderly.
Yeah, and it's not only your
Yeah.
property either. It's, Clam Haven's got containers there. Up the street, the other motorcycle place, this doesn't look good for what we wanted to deem as West Running Brook District. That's supposed to be a high-end, because we do have some high-end facilities coming in there. That is walkable and village concept. So that's my comment.
Mr. Chair.
Oh,
Hello.
we think you hear it, Chris?
Good, sir. I have to thank Owen for working his magic. I'm sorry for the delay on stepping in here. I have to agree with everything that Mr. Connor summarized. That's what I was going to walk through. I think what I would say to the board is, we have established guidelines for the West Running Brook District, and we should be adhering to those. To the best we can. I have a hard time with wavering things or guidelines that have been established. We change them, and again, it comes back to what's the point of the rules if we're going to change the rules? Hello?
So, is that it? We set?
Yes, sir. I just felt like I lost you there for a second.
So, I have some general thoughts about this whole issue. This district is unique in a bunch of ways. The fact that the zoning board has to seek the planning board's recommendations is only one of them. Everything other than the list of uses is waiverable, and it was intended to be a highly flexible set of rules. Some people, myself included, have previously kind of maybe too flexible, because some of them are fairly subjective, and it's hard to make objective decisions based on subjective data. I'll also comment that I think the vision, and I wasn't here when this was created, I think the vision is to create something like the Butterfield property, right? Or like Tuscan Village in Salem, or whatever that development in Londonderry is named that I forget.
Woodmont.
Woodmont. In other words, greenfield, new construction, mixed use, apartments, stores, entertainment, and whoever said it, maybe it was both Mr. O'Connor and Mr. Chase, that if we were, and Mr. Grenice, I think, mentioned, if we were successful in getting someone to buy that property, demo it, and build a greenfield development, we might well get the vision. I'm also quite realistic about the fact that planning board and master plan visions are not always shared by people with money to actually do projects. I'll remind long-term members of the board of the office medical business district we had down on the south end of 28 on Arthur Karras's property. It was a wonderful vision, but too much ledge, no one wanted to spend the money, so we ended up rezoning it for residential. So we have to be careful about sticking to a vision that no one wants to execute in a reasonable time frame. Otherwise, we do end up with derelict properties sitting vacant. And so, in the case of this lot, where no one wants to redevelop it, I guess I don't see great harm in allowing it to be used so that it can be maintained. If there's a revenue flow, hopefully Mr. Taylor will clean up some of the issues. I think I hear that he's running a de facto self-storage business without permits. So somebody might be interested in that. Okay. But as to the reality of it becoming our vision, I think, like Mr. Grenice, that it would require redevelopment. And I guess unless we see someone coming in to do that, forcing it to remain vacant is probably not in the best interest of the community. That's just my thought on it. So I guess we have to, do we have a motion maker? Do we have a draft recommended motion?
I guess there should be an overall, I've kind of taken notes as everyone's been speaking to try and capture those so I can get those into a memo for the ZBA chair. Perhaps I don't know if the board wants to do a straw poll or something so that we have some form of consensus.
I think we should make a vote.
It's just a recommendation.
I think we should vote on whether the planning board's recommendation is yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's no, we should attach supporting documentation.
Okay.
Mr. Chair? I have one final comment or question. Do we know what the language of the proposed, if there was a change of use, do we know what that exact use would be?
It would be to allow a commercial service establishment in the West Running Brook district, because that falls under commercial service.
So specific. And
Or vehicle repair, whichever one most closely matches it. I think, Mr. LaRosa, it would be closer to vehicle repair.
Yes.
Okay, so vehicle repair facility, specifically motorcycles,
So,
because it's limited to motorcycles. My understanding is it's just motorcycles, not other vehicles.
So change of use is perhaps misleading because it really doesn't have much to do with the zoning use. The zoning use is controlled by variance.
Mm-hmm.
Change of use means that a new tenant is coming into a property and they're doing something either slightly or very different from the previous tenant. And typically the planning staff makes a determination on whether it's a donut shop turning into an ice cream shop. Well, those are hardly different, so no further action required other than letting us know, so send out the health department or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If it goes from a donut shop to a printed circuit board manufacturing factory, that's a big change of use, and that probably needs to come to the planning board.
Likely. Mm-hmm.
So when we say change of use, that's basically just letting the planning staff know that there's someone new coming in, and we make a determination on whether we want to review the plan. The change of use in terms of granting a variance is something the ZBA does. We don't do.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a question. If the decision's made for a change of use to move to vehicle repair, does that open up Pandora's box, I'm gonna say, for the next vehicle repair, automotive, or used cars to come in, anything along that line that's so close that there's another variance that needs to be given? I mean, are we just gonna see this thing turn into eventually, theoretically, into a car lot? Could that happen once you make this change?
Well, I mean, you're asking, will the zoning board look at their decision as setting a precedent for future decisions? I can't answer that. You served on the zoning board for a while, Mr. Myers. Do you have an answer to that?
I really don't. I mean, it's all different numbers now, and there have been some changes, but I mean, you know, I would answer the finance question by saying it would really be on a case-by-case basis. You know, they'd have to go through the 5-point analysis and determine whether or not it's appropriate, and it's gonna change
Yeah,
every
you
time.
need to be closer to the mic. Basically, what we're both saying is we think it ought to be case-by-case basis. I don't think that the zoning board is likely to say, well, we granted a variance for this to that guy, therefore we have to do the same thing for that girl, because I think they're bound by more strict procedures than that, but I can't really speak for them, so I can't really answer Mr. Feinhauer's question. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I can just add, as chairman of the Salem Zoning Board of Adjustment, and being a zoning board member for 18 years, we look at each individual petition as a separate proposal. And we're really not concerned with setting precedent. We don't, in fact, we always tell Wyndham, we don't set precedent.
So I guess in order to bring this to a closure and make it official, I would solicit a motion to forward a positive recommendation to the zoning board on this application. And if the majority vote is no, then we can consider what supporting documentation we want to attach to that memo. Does that seem reasonable to everyone? We typically make motions in the affirmative.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Myers, seconded by Mr. Malby, to send a positive recommendation to the zoning board of adjustment in regard to this application. Any further discussion? I think we've had that. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
No, I believe it goes against the intent of the district, and I think if we create certain guidelines for the district, we should try to follow them.
Mr. Grenice?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
I'm going to say no, with the caveat that if it does move over to the zoning board, that Mr. Feinhaus, our letter goes with it.
Okay. Mr. Fishman?
No, I don't believe it matches the intent, and there's concern that if the variance is approved, it will continue to leak and change the intention of that, of the district.
Mr. Feinhauer?
No, for the reasons cited in my letter and said by Mr. Healy, Mr. O'Connor, and Mr. Fishman.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Malby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So who's keeping track of the tally?
5 to 4 yeses.
Okay. Well, you are going to get a recommendation. I don't have a problem if the board would like to forward additional material that we reviewed and a copy of our minutes, although we can't get the minutes done for tomorrow.
No, we won't,
But,
yeah.
okay. Would people like to have some of that supporting material sent over to the ZBA as part of, attached to this memo?
Of course, I would go along with that, since I recommend it.
Okay. Hearing no objection, then we could do that.
Of course.
Okay. Next item under other business
Good luck tomorrow.
is a review of a request to restore involuntarily
You can have
merged
that.
lots, PID 19065-601 Colette's Grove.
So for this one, the town of Derry has been asked to restore lots believed to be involuntarily merged for 601 Colette's Grove Road. Mr. Ogier, who owns the property, forwarded the request, and planning board is asked to make a recommendation prior to town council taking action upon the request. The RSA 674-39AA was established to assist landowners who had lots that were involuntarily merged by the town for taxation purposes to restore them to their pre-merger status. That legislation was put into effect of July of 2011. The involuntary merger had to have occurred before September of 2010, and we would have to prove that they voluntarily merged the lots through either some form of direct requests, like a voluntary merger, lot line adjustment, or lot consolidation, to deny the request. Assessing has reviewed the file and indicated there's no record of a voluntary merger, and they believe these lots to be involuntarily merged. Mr. Ogier has requested that the lots be restored. He's also stated he would like to create 2 lots from the 3, but configure them differently. So they would go back to, I believe it's 70 by 100 lots. The deed currently reflects 3 parcels, and in order for him to do what he wants to do, once the lots are restored, he'd have to do a lot line adjustment or a merger of the lots. And that's a planning board action, but that cannot take place until town council finishes their portion. So I do want to point out that restoration of the lots doesn't cure any existing nonconformities, and any structures to be constructed upon lots once restored would have to meet today's setbacks or get the appropriate variances. I'd recommend that the planning board find that the lots should be restored to their pre-merger status, and suggest that town council approve the request with the condition that the 2 lots intended to be combined be addressed through planning board procedures and processes.
All right, so I'm not sure I understand this. So they,
Okay, so we got 1 lot that, there were 3 original lots that were common ownership that the town merged into 1, so
And-
that they could
and-
send 1 tax
and
bill.
and what is the preferred end state for the owner?
I'm sorry, what's at stake?
What
Greg?
would he eventually like to end up with?
He would eventually, he would like the 3 lots to be restored, and then he wants to combine those and make them 2.
But he wants to make it a slightly different configuration.
Right, so.
All right, so let me see if I got this right. He wants to undo the involuntary merger, so he ends up with 3 lots for which we have no plats, we just have deed descriptions.
Correct.
Okay, that always makes me a little nervous, but okay. And then at some point, he wants to come in and take those 3 lots and make them into 2, but not through just a merger, but through a lot line adjustment.
Likely it would have to be through a lot line adjustment because of the way he wants to configure the lot line. So he would probably have a voluntary merger and then a lot line adjustment following that. But that's a problem or an issue for another day.
Okay, as long as he realizes that,
He does.
that would be the case. You
He
can't
does.
just do it through a different merger. Okay.
Right.
Anyone else not understand this?
Just let
Have questions?
It's a little tricky.
Just to let you know, Mr. Chair, that a few years ago, the state legislature mandated that if anybody that was involuntary merged could have it merged, no questions asked.
Yeah, but there was a deadline for that.
I didn't think there was.
It hasn't, they got rid of the sundown, so it's now forever.
Read it again, okay.
Mr. Chase?
So, Ms. Roto, on Mr. LaValle's letter, I'm a little confused on from what you just said to what he just said. Is what Mr. Lavelle referring to in the second paragraph, unfortunately, the assessing department has no record of the merger, is that voluntary or involuntary, or no record, period, of them being merged?
He has, what he's saying is that the assessing department doesn't have a letter on file that says, we have taken lots A, B, and C and now made them lot D.
Okay.
So he's referring to that. So there's no record in the assessing file of when or how the town combined these 3 lots into 1.
But we are sure the town did combine them. It was the town that combined them, nobody else.
Correct.
We're positive of that.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the assessing department. They should have some form of record, either on the tax, like there should be something on the tax card, or they, I know that they, in discussing, since we've had this question come up recently about how lots get merged and what the record keeping is for that.
Yeah.
I am aware that in our software, when they merge lots, there's always a note put in that file, like in Vision.
Yeah,
So.
and that was there.
Yeah.
So that we're absolutely
yeah,
sure that the town did do this.
Yeah, assessing is very, very good about making sure that they give us the right information.
Okay. That was my only confusion.
So the presumption is if there's no record of it being voluntary, we assume it was involuntary.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's how the law reads.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, and the
Your side
planning
of
board's
the-
just making a
The table
recommendation.
here? Nope.
Seeing none, Mr. Chair?
Okay.
I move to recommend that the Derry Town Council act to restore the 3 lots to their pre-merger status and to request the applicant, following that action, file an application with the planning board to combine 2 lots, 2 of the 3 lots.
Second.
Okay. Well, let's just remember that depending on what they're requesting, it might be a lot of adjustments rather than a merger. And we should ask for a plat.
We will get one.
Okay, great. I'll poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Grenice?
I'm going to abstain on this because I'll be voting on this when it comes to the town council.
Okay, great. Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Fisherman?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
You go, Chris?
Next,
Mr. Feinauer?
yeah, thank you. Mr. Feinauer?
I vote yes.
All right. Oh, and we can still hear you. That's great.
Even better.
So the next item is planning director or chairman updates. Do you have anything?
At this time, I have none.
Okay. I just, like a broken record, indicate we still have one more open alternate seat for someone who would like to come and join us with all this fun. Next item on the agenda is the Gateway Committee update. Whoever would like to give that?
I'll do that. Are we putting a PowerPoint up here?
We are.
Good evening. We've been meeting on a weekly basis to discuss the coming proposed use changes, or at least the proposal for the Gateway District. The committee has come up with a strategy to approach this with the intention of soliciting as much community feedback from stakeholders, residents and business owners, landowners in the area, in order to help craft the vision and understand how people want, what they like about the area, what they want to see, and help collaboratively develop a proposal for how we can change the uses and promote the economic development as outlined in the master plan. It's a fairly complex district, or area rather, and so one of the first things the subcommittee decided to do was subdivide it into 3 subsections, which we'll see in a couple slides here. The intention is going to, actually, do you mind flipping ahead? Yeah, there you go. So we've divided this into a number of subsections, 5, excuse me. And part of the intent of doing that was so that we could focus the feedback and input from the community to those specific regions, since there's different constituents in each of those areas. So the intention of this is that we will be holding 3 different visioning sessions. There'll be public sessions, but there'll be specific invites going out to stakeholders who own property in those areas. Those sessions will have some degree of education on what's happening, followed by an open discussion and forum for answering questions and ultimately soliciting their inputs into the vision that will then culminate into a proposed change plan for this area. We've been following the objectives outlined in the master plan, and ultimately the recommendations will be brought to the board to craft the final proposal, which will then be voted upon. The first of those visioning sessions is it correct, the 10th?
January 6th.
Sorry, January 6th. Running then in a couple in February. So March, April timeframe, we expect to be coming back to the board with a consolidated vision of more a gathering of the inputs from the community for the board to continue developing the proposal. Ms. Robideau, is there any other elements you wanted to speak to in that? Are there any questions?
No, I don't think so. The committee's been, committee's working pretty hard at, moving forward, and our target date is to have the invites out for the first visioning session, which would be for the yellow areas. By the 13th, we'd like to get those invites in the mail to the property owners and stakeholders in the area to invite them to that meeting on the 6th. And the meeting will be televised. Owen has offered to assist us with that. So we'll have the Zoom hybrid option. We'll figure out if that'll be listen or participation or not, but we're still working out details for that.
Okay, I am, one question that I don't know if any of these maps address. The map that's on the screen currently, the colored sections, is that the boundaries of what we're considering the Gateway District?
Yeah, so all of the colored area would be what is considered the Gateway District, and then the different colors represent the sub-areas within it.
And what is the relative overlap of the Gateway District versus the TIF district that corresponds to it?
I know that the Ash Street TIF district, I'm going off memory for the map.
No, it's not the Ash Street one, it's the commercial corridor.
The commercial corridor, it's similar. It's similar. I'll have to,
Yeah, maybe we could actually
Yeah.
get an overlay just to
Sure.
see how close it matches. I should know that because I sit on the TIF District Advisory Committee, but I don't actually have a copy of that map, at least not currently.
I didn't bring mine, I sit on the committee.
yeah, I believe, we looked at that, didn't we?
We did.
When we were, I think we looked at it when we were
you're on
crafting
the other
the
one.
boundary of the district.
You're on the other TIF committee.
Yeah, the Gateway.
Right.
90% sure we have that in the folder.
I thought so.
So it'd be
yeah.
good to have that, and just in terms of having a final product to the council, what is the anticipated schedule?
So the 3 visioning sessions to take place through February, come back and maybe have 1 larger visioning session, March, April, and then have something crafted long-term to bring to the board for workshop and hopefully public hearing by the end of June, so that as we head into July, we can get that to town council.
Okay. Any questions from any members of the board or any members of the public who might be interested? Hearing none. Next item of agenda is a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Goodbye, Mr. Feinauer.
Bye, sir.